He should be on Jeremy Grant money. Instead, he's
Man,
on
not even.
Kevin Durant money, or he's on
Yeah.
one of these. He's on Jimmy Butler money,
He's being paid.
which is insane.
He's being paid like a star, and he's not even that. Do you want to say number one at the same time?
I mean, yeah.
You want to count down?
3,
2, 1.
All right. Let's move on now to the 10 worst contracts currently in the NBA.
I'm excited for this.
This is one of my favorite things to talk about, bad NBA contracts and bad GMs. It's a personal favorite of mine.
I love looking at other people's wallets and contracts.
Yeah, and just staring at them in awe.
Yeah.
Let's start with number 10. Who's your number 10?
Okay, so I'll try to angle this so you can't see anything.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
My 10th worst contract in the league is... Actually, let me preface this. So I've got 4 guys that missed the cut. And this is how I did it.
Yep.
So the most important factor for this was the average number of millions per duration.
Yes.
So I've got every contract in my top 10 is over 1 year. So the people that missed the list are 1 year contracts that are really bad.
Yep.
But they're only 1 year.
Yep.
They're probably even tradable, which makes them less bad than the other 10. So I've got Otto Porter, Mike Conley, Andre Drummond, and Kyle Lowry. They're all over $28 million a year.
Yep.
Mike Conley's particularly poor because he's 33 years old. Otto Porter at $28 million is shocking.
I have 2 of those in my top 10.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. So those are the 4 that I would leave off the list.
Okay. That's fair. I just included, 2 of those.
They're not good.
Purely because they're bad contracts.
They're so bad. I mean, you look at them and you go, how did a GM decide that was a good idea?
Yeah.
Even on potential.
That's
Like Otto
awful.
Porter.
It's awful.
Jesus.
Yep.
But so my number 10 is Chris Middleton at $35 million over 4 years with a player option. He's 29 years old.
That's spicy.
I did not like that contract even when it was signed. I
You're
understand.
You're going to upset a lot of Bucks fans.
I know. I was waiting for that. It's coming in again. We already had some heaters come in giving us...
Yeah, I was smashed for the trading Chris Middleton take.
Yeah, I wasn't going to jump in front of those bullets.
Yeah, no, I took him. Don't worry.
But nonetheless, Chris Middleton at $35 million. This is an average number over the duration, so the number is going to be like close to 40 at the end of it. But $35 million over 4 years is $35 million per year over the next 4 years with a player option at 29 years old. Hot take: he's going to pick up that player option, and continue to get.
Honestly,
checks.
I would be shocked if he said no.
That would be so weird.
Gordon Hayward thing.
I mean, that was an outlier. I think Gordon Hayward. Who's your number 10?
I have Gary Harris.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Gary Harris is only on $19.6 million. But we've talked enough about Gary Harris for you guys to know that that's a tough contract for Denver.
Considering the position they're in, yeah.
Yeah, that's the reason why they couldn't re-sign Jeremy Grant. And there are a couple of other reasons why,
Will Barton's part of that too, but yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of bad contracts on there, but I thought, Gary Harris deserved to be in the top 10. He was 3-and-D guy, and we just talked about, OG Anunoby's contract for, similar sort of production, but OG has more upside. So I just say that Gary Harris is, it's just not a good contract. It's just a bad contract. $19.6 million.
It's not great.
And his numbers are on the decline when he should really be in his prime. He's only 26 years old.
Should be on the incline.
It really should be going up. So who's your number 9?
I've got Jeremy Grant at $20 million a year for 3 years.
Yep.
He's only 26.
Yep.
So I guess you could argue he has the potential to fill in that contract.
Yep.
Or meet what the expectations are.
He did have a good day today. He had a really poor first outing for the Pistons, but he did have a nice day today. He ended up with 28 points and 11 rebounds.
Good for Jeremy.
Yeah.
I don't like that contract for many different reasons. he could score maybe if he averaged 25 a game, I'd be like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
But that contract for that team at this point, after what he's done, is way too much for me. There's a reason I think why Denver didn't re-sign him at that number, because it's a bit crazy even for that team where he fit really well.
Yep.
But yeah, Jeremy Grant, $20 million a year, don't like it.
That's just a bad contract.
Yeah,
It's a bad contract. I had Otto Porter, who you mentioned in your special mentions.
not good.
$28.5 million this year. It's just not a good contract. He's currently earning more than Giannis, DeMar DeRozan, Buddy Hield, Jaylen Brown,
It's
and
insane.
a host of other players.
It's insane.
Last season, he averaged 12 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 1.8 assists in only 14 games played.
Yeah.
So bad contract. It was handed out by the Wizards. The Bulls picked it up. I think they got a couple of assets in return just to take the contract off the Wizards' hands. Otto Porter is a 3-and-D guy.
They traded Jabari Parker to the Wizards for Otto Porter. What a weird trade that
was
is.
strange.
But yeah,
Two of the worst players in, on starting
at that
rosters.
position and starting,
Yeah, Otto Porter's his ceiling is 3-and-D. So to give him 28.5 mil, it's bad.
My thing with Otto Porter is like I didn't deserve the number, but I understand to a certain degree why the Wizards gave him that, because he was young, like seemingly a perfect 3-and-D guy next to Wall and Beal, and then they had the other pieces in the front court. But he has done nothing at all to justify the contract.
Worse.
It's been awful.
Yeah.
Now, in Chicago, what makes this worse is I feel like they only play him because he's paid so well.
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve to start.
Yeah.
He should be on the bench learning how to play better or getting the motivation to play better, as opposed to just basically being handed a starting spot and not doing anything with it. It's ugly.
Well, we may see, that change sort of come through, with new coaching in
Billy Donovan, yeah.
Billy
Maybe.
Donovan's a bit. He actually started off the bench today, so that's a good start. Patrick Williams started today.
Okay.
So
fair enough.
Yep.
My next contract, this might be controversial. Kemba Walker, $35.5 million over 3 years. Per year he gets $35.5 million. He's 30 years old, so he's not a bad age.
I don't hate it.
In the middle of his prime. You don't hate that contract?
No. Oh, no. I don't hate that take.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I don't think the contract's as terrible as some of the other names on the list.
No, it's not.
But yeah, he's overpaid for his production, especially last season. He wasn't fantastic, and he has no or very limited playoff experience.
Well, that's the thing. So he had 1 year in the playoffs, maybe 2 years in the playoffs with Charlotte, and he was okay. Like, that's fine. He's probably the best player in that team's history since they moved back to Charlotte in 2004 with the expansion draft. But Kemba Walker at $35.5 million is not going to do it. He's undersized. He's a good offensive player. In fact, he's a great offensive player. He's clutch. But you're paying a guy way too much money to be a defensive liability. And he's a bit injury prone as well. I'm not just saying that right now because he's injured, but he does have an injury history. When you look at it, again, Boston had to kind of find a point guard. They needed to pay someone. Again, kind of what we talked about with the Clippers, although the Celtics don't have this history. But you pay players so that other players see that the team is willing to pay. Kemba kind of fits that, but I didn't like that contract at all.
I don't really like the contract. I think it's fair enough to put it in that list.
At number 8. It's not the worst, but it's not great. It's in the 10 worst for sure.
Just an update on the games today. Pistons and Cavaliers are going to second OT. So that's a hell of a matchup, that one.
Oh, man.
Yeah. If you're not doing anything, guys, check that one out. That's a ripper.
That is a ripper.
All right. At number 8, I have Jeremy Grant, who you just covered.
Agreed.
I moved him up a spot.
Not very good.
The Pistons paid him. His first game he played 31 minutes and shot a woeful 20% from 3. He had 9 points and 1 rebound in his first game. He's obviously played better today, but you can't really measure a player's performance against the Cavaliers. It's a tough one. But yeah, it's just bad. Like, it's just a bad contract. He averaged 12 points last year in 26 minutes, but he had 2 guys that were frequently double teamed on the roster, as well as Jokic, who's probably the best passing big man of all time.
Perfect system for him.
Yeah, he was just just shot threes and defended, and now he's moved to the Pistons where they're literally asking him to cover every spot on the roster. And I don't know if he's capable of doing that, and it's a risk paying a player that much money to cover that amount of, to improve that much and to cover that much sort of range in the span of an off season. So
Asking a lot.
It is. Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. That contract definitely deserves to be on this list.
Yeah.
My number 7 was Blake Griffin.
Oh yeah.
At $37 million over the next 2 years.
Yep.
Sorry, 37. I keep doing this. $37 million per year for the next 2 years.
Yep.
He's 31 years old.
He has a player option next year.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
He has a checkered injury history.
Yep.
I mean, the Clippers paid him that money.
Yep.
And I can understand why the Clippers paid, but the Pistons, if they can, need to get off of that contract. I like Blake Griffin. I think it's very interesting how he's evolved his game.
Yep.
He used to be all dunks, and he did have a mid-range game and what have you. Now he's playmaking. He's shooting threes. He doesn't really dunk much anymore, but he can get to the rim. He's still athletic, but he's not pushing in overdrive all the time.
Well, he's
under control now.
He's not a great defender either.
Yeah.
That's something you got to mention.
True.
For someone with that much athleticism early in his career, defensively, he was just average.
Yeah.
Like, actually probably below average. But yeah, that's definitely one of the worst contracts currently.
Yeah.
At number 7, I had Eric Gordon, who is on $16.8 million this year. Not a huge contract.
Okay. That's an interesting one.
He's 32.
Right.
He's an average 3-point shooter, average free throw shooter, limited to catch and shoot, doesn't create off the dribble.
What did he shoot from 3?
He shot 38%, 36%.
Okay.
So around that very average NBA shooting numbers.
I see what you mean.
And he'll be 36 when his contract expires. At the peak of the contract, it's $20 million. So paying a 36-year-old $20 million who can only catch and shoot and does it, on a very average
Could be better.
level. It's just not a good contract to hand out, especially with Houston having that much money tied up. Well, now in John Wall and James Harden, when they move off the Harden contract, it'll look a bit better. But still, Eric Gordon, that's a bad contract.
I don't think that's that bad of a contract. I see your point. I think he's a little bit better at dribbling and creating than you think. Although his numbers should be better in terms of shooting. That's not one, I wouldn't even put that in my top 20 worst contracts. Although the age thing does concern me for that team particularly, needing a bit more flexibility in terms of the salary. But yeah, I mean, okay, fair enough. I wouldn't put him in my top 10. I haven't.
Okay.
But yeah, fair enough. You're
That's
entitled
fine.
to Eric
Yeah.
Gordon.
I thought it was bad when he signed it originally. I've always looked at that contract like it's not good. He's not worthy of that much money.
That's not good. Sorry. The Bulls are down by 28 right now.
Yep.
It's pretty ugly.
Yep.
Um,
Very ugly.
No one's shocked.
In the fourth quarter, start of the fourth quarter.
Yeah. So my number 6, a lot of people are going to argue that he should be higher. Andrew Wiggins, $31.5 million a year for the next 3 years.
Yep.
He's 25, so that's where, as unjustified as the number is, he still has potential. I can't take that away from him. I've said on previous podcasts that he was going to have a big season. 2 games in, hasn't looked amazing. I think the Warriors are still working things out, so I'm not concerned necessarily. But he has such a high ceiling still. I mean, if he can harness it in Golden State, then that's great. If not, I don't know where else he's going to go. But at $31.5 million a year, you'd love to see a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
He was paid for his potential in Minnesota, so it is what it is. Minnesota, not exactly a hotbed for smart decisions, but
That was a really tough one for me. I didn't include it.
Wiggins at all? Wow.
It was a tough one. I don't like the contract.
How can you like it?
It's also, man, I don't know. I left it off only because it seems obvious to me that it's not a good contract, but at the same time,
It's almost not worth discussing.
He's one of the youngest players on a max extension who's already halfway through it. He still has a lot of potential to grow. I don't think he's reached his peak Wiggins, if you'll call it that. But to start this year, he's been very poor.
Yeah,
I thought there were a handful of contracts that were much worse from the team's perspective. The fact that he was traded for tells me that teams see something in him.
They do.
That perhaps we as viewers are kind of like, why are they landing Wiggins here?
Majority would think it's like, move on from him. Like, yeah.
He could also come out and put up 25 or average 25 points a game. Like, he's got that scoring potential. Defensively, he's long, athletic.
Super athletic, yeah.
He could be so much more than he is. Whereas I think, the guys that I included on this list, we know what they are. They are what they are, and that's it. Like, you're never going to get any more out of these guys. Whereas I think with Wiggins, if you squeeze him and push him, you're going to get more out of him.
That's the thing.
So, yeah.
That's why, I actually was thinking putting him higher, and then I rearranged my list recently, and I was like, okay, these other 5 guys that we're going to talk about are worse. But Wiggins, I get your point, not including him. He's a bit young. He's halfway through his contract. Hopefully he doesn't get a similar one from another team.
I can't imagine he would. I think he'll probably fall back at that 20 mil, and he'll just sit there.
But never discount the fact that the Knicks could pay him $25 million a year.
You're right.
Just because he was somewhere significant. Yeah. So who's your number 6?
At number 6, I had Mike Conley, who you mentioned in your special mentions.
Yeah.
At 34 years of age.
Not good.
That contract dating back to when the Grizzlies gave it to him, I had a lot of thought about this. He was probably the 5th or 6th best point guard in the league.
He was good, man.
Worthy of a supermax extension.
Again, that's a Memphis thing. Memphis signed him to that contract. I agree. Probably not worth that money. But Memphis showed a lot of loyalty to him. They developed him. He stuck around with the team, didn't sign anywhere else in previous contract negotiations. So, yeah, they rewarded his loyalty with a massive contract.
Yep.
And, yeah, it has not aged well.
And he looks really bad in Utah. That's a really bad contract for Utah to now have to deal with. He looks slow. Defensively was bad.
And he's renowned as a defensive player.
Exactly. Exactly. And he was just losing assignments, missing assignments. I think, coming off the back of playing with Marc Gasol for as many years as he was, it's tough to then move to another franchise where there's a French player in the backcourt. I don't know what Rudy Gobert's communication's like. Defensively, when he's on the court, they're much better. But as far as one-on-one defending, Mike Conley looks slow, looks a bit lost on the court at times. Offensively, he didn't really want the ball. He seemed like he was happy to just stand off ball and watch the play unfold.
Defer to someone else.
It's a hard contract to manage, and it seemed like a good idea for Utah to trade for that at the time.
It did actually.
But yeah, it's a bad one.
Yeah, I can't say I wasn't for the trade at the time because they had moved off of Rubio in favor of Conley, and it felt like an upgrade at the time. But that was based on reputation.
I can agree with that. Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, that contract's not great.
It's not great.
I can't argue. Can't argue with it. Totally agree. So number 5, I have John Wall on $42 million this season.
Yep.
For the next 3 years, he has a player option.
Yep. I think he'll take it.
Yeah, he'll probably opt in.
Hot take.
Yeah. He's 30 years old. He's just come off a Achilles injury.
Yep.
I don't think he has really a checkered past in terms of injuries.
He does.
Does he?
Yeah, he does. Yep. Yep.
Fact
so
checking.
over the last 4 seasons, he's played 73 games. And that's missing 2 seasons.
Okay. Well, that was a pretty foolish statement on my part. But nonetheless, John Wall, number 5 on my list. I mean, it's even in Washington, they paid him again. This is a loyalty thing. Now, part of this, again, this is sort of the politics of the contracts.
Yeah.
When Bradley Beal re-signed his extension, in Washington, John Wall felt slighted. And they always had a bit of a wishy-washy relationship, that backcourt.
Yep.
But Brad Beal was signed to an extension somewhere around $30 million. And John Wall wasn't too happy about it. John Wall also said in the media that he felt like if somebody like Reggie Jackson can get X amount of dollars, and Reggie Jackson was paid nicely by Detroit, I believe, why can't John Wall get that money?
Yeah.
And again, this is pointing the finger at Washington. If you're John Wall and you're going, give me my money. Look what I've done. I've been the best player on the team for years. And they rewarded him. And then it's just gone down the drain since then. He's had a myriad of injuries, as Josh just pointed out.
Yep.
Yeah, not a great contract.
It's unfortunate. He's
a lot of money.
He's a good NBA player, but yeah, he's never worth $40 million.
It's a lot of money, man.
It's very similar to the Conley situation, I think, with Grizzlies, because it's not a huge market team, so they have to hang on to what they've got.
Yep.
Whereas
deal with the
LA
asset
just
later.
trade for it, or Clippers trade for it, Philly trade for it.
Yeah.
It's just what happens. It's just how the league works. So yeah, it's not a good one. It's a bad one. That's a bad contract.
Pretty bad. It's not even the worst, but it's pretty bad.
Yeah, he's right up there for me, but he's coming later.
Okay.
At number 5, I have Al Horford.
Ooh. Okay.
$27.5 million. He's 34. How he got that contract from Philly, I will never understand.
I know. I agree, man.
I will never get it.
I feel like there was some Elton Brand stuff happening where he likes his big men, and he was like, okay, Al Horford, yeah, I'm gonna hone in on that, and he gave him basically the same contract he got from Boston.
Yeah,
but now he's 3-4 years older.
He was 30 when he went to Boston, which is like the prime for a center.
Yeah.
Really good move by Boston.
Great player.
Really savvy.
Yep.
But he really should have only got like maybe 15 mil with a team option.
15, 20 tops. I agree, man.
You've really got to put the ball in his court to go, okay, if you don't perform, we'll just decline it and off you go. So yeah, that's how Miami have handled their contracts for years. They get older guys on the roster and it's team options. It's like, no, like this is what you're getting. Yeah. If you don't live up to what we're paying you, then we'll see you later.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a bad contract. He was really poor in Philadelphia. I like him.
Not a good fit. Similar to Josh Richardson.
Yeah. I like him much more in a new setting in OKC. More laid back. The fans aren't on your back.
No pressure.
He can just play his game.
Yeah.
He played today. I think he put up pretty good numbers. I think he got 15 boards or something today. So that's really good from a 34-year-old.
It is.
But yeah, it's a bad contract. And now he's stuck in OKC for the next 3 years.
Well, look, he was my next guy, so we can just keep this discussion going.
Let's keep it rolling.
Al Horford, 34 years old, $27 million per season for the next 3 years. You can't justify that, really. He's a great leader. He was really good in Atlanta, and that led to him getting paid well in Boston.
He was really good in Boston as well.
He was really for the
good
first
in
2 seasons.
Yeah.
He was outstanding.
Yep. I'd say 2.5. I think he had a niggling injury in the third, and he wasn't able to kind of sustain that level of play, and he didn't play too much. I don't remember him playing in the playoffs in his third season in Boston. I think it was Tice starting, so I don't really, I don't recall how that all fell apart. But yeah, it's all on Philadelphia. Like that, really,
pretty awful.
That's a really bad contract. And if I could count the amount of bad contracts that Philly have handed out over the last 5-6 years, then
or didn't contract decisions that they've made or not made, like Jimmy Butler. Nah, Tobias Harris, you're our guy.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
But that's another story. Jimmy Butler didn't want back in because of the coaching situation. Blah, blah,
Yep.
blah. So yeah, Al Horford, not a great contract. That's was number 4 for me. Who's your number 4?
Kevin Love.
Okay.
Are we going to match up again here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Keep
cool.
going.
Love,
my number 3.
Love is 32. Has had injury issues over the last 3 years. Has taken a dip in efficiency.
Big time.
And now that he's been relegated to an outside role with Drummond starting inside. His career double-double is, he's a career double-double threat, so he has that going for him. But it's a bad situation for him in Cleveland. Yeah. It's a bad contract for Cleveland.
Yeah.
Because they've been trying to trade it now since they signed him to an extension.
Exactly.
And no one is going to pick up that contract. He'd probably be suitable on a contender, but what contender wants $31 million
one of the
on
hardest trade machine moves to make,
Yep.
in my opinion, unless you're dreaming.
Yep.
Yeah, Kevin Love is not a good look.
No.
Close to 30 million per season for the next 3 years. Yeah, 32 years old. I mean, who knew that LeBron James made such a difference in players' careers?
Who knew?
Yeah, he's gone way off. I mean, actually, his numbers have stayed about the same, but there's no victories. You can tell that they need a better roster anyway, as is. But he also missed, what would that be? He played 22 games last season.
Yep.
Sorry, the year before that. And then he played 56 last year. So he played a fair amount, but he didn't justify the money. Again, they paid him, to me, because they needed to reward Kevin Love. He was the guy who got all the flack during the Kyrie, LeBron, Kevin Love era.
Yep.
He was kind of like the fall guy, similar to Bosch in Miami with LeBron and Dwayne Wade. And they felt like they needed to pay him to say thank you
Yep.
for your service. And the Cavaliers said outright, we want to build around Kevin Love. I don't know what they were thinking, but here we are. And now they're a hot pile of garbage.
I feel bad for Kevin Love because he's actually a really good NBA player, but it's a really bad situation in Cleveland. He would have been better to not take the money, but how well does that bode for him financially moving forward, depending on what he's trying to do with his life?
That's right.
But from a basketball perspective, it's not always about the money, and he really should have just gone into free agency, put himself into a good situation, been a stretch four in a good franchise, possibly Philadelphia, Boston. These are guys that could have, teams that could have used him, and he would have been putting up better numbers. His career would have looked better.
Yeah. Even if his numbers stayed the same or were worse, he would have fit better.
Yep.
He would have probably been happier.
Yep.
I mean, and now he has to deal with Colin Sexton and Darius Garland.
Yeah.
And then also rub shoulders with Andre Drummond all the time in the paint.
Who's a bully in the paint.
I like
even
Drummond,
with
actually.
Even with his own teammates.
Yeah, I like Drummond, and
like
he
him
was
too.
on my missed the cut list, but nonetheless, not a good fit.
I like that contract only because of how valuable rebounding is in the NBA, but at the same time, Drummond can't do much other than that. So,
well, actually, did you know that he's one of the only players that averaged more than 1.5 steals and blocks per game last year?
I did.
He's really good defensively,
wow.
Statistically. He came out and he was saying that he had goals of winning Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, yeah, it's probably not going to happen.
I don't think so.
But we appreciate the optimism,
Yeah.
Andre.
Yeah, thanks.
Who is your number 3?
I had Blake Griffin.
Right.
I had him all the way up at 3.
I see your
It's a tough one. Availability is the best ability, and I went with that for my top 3. Well, I'll get there, but Blake Griffin just can't stay healthy, and it's unfortunate because at his best, he was probably MVP quality. I would say he was in and around the top 5.
Yeah.
But look, it's a really hard situation in Detroit. They rode him like a cheap horse. He was absolutely ruined after his first half a season in Detroit. Then he just couldn't, you can't maintain that for long, and especially a guy that size with that athleticism, which is now, it's almost gone.
It's definitely declined.
Yeah, he's still 6'10", he's still got the size, but yeah, it's just unfortunate. And
he's
that
still
contract
pretty quick too, but yeah, he's just not the same.
No.
You can't expect the same highlight plays out of him at all. He's a smart basketball player, and that's where I give him a lot of credit. He's evolved his game.
Absolutely.
But with the injury history and the value overall, I agree. It was my number 7, but I see exactly why you have him at 3. It's a lot of money for a guy like that.
That's not on the court. That's the biggest issue. He's just never out there.
I mean, I don't know if there's many guys in the league you could say that are more injury prone. Like, just constantly something's wrong.
Almost John Wall. That'd basically be it. Dante Exum. But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
I digress. Who's your number 2?
All right. Get ready. I don't think you're probably expecting this one.
I don't think so.
My number 2, worst contract in the league, it kind of makes number 1 obvious, is Klay Thompson.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to be entirely honest with you here. I looked at it.
Okay. I want to hear your thoughts because I have a pretty good argument. Go ahead.
I looked at Klay Thompson's contract.
Right.
And I thought, it's not great because he's not on the court. And that's all I could think of. That was basically it. Is the 2 injuries, back-to-back seasons. He's now going to miss 2 years being paid. What's he on?
$39 million a year
Yeah,
for the next 4 years.
Damn.
He's 30 years old, so he's in the prime of his career.
Yep.
He's not in the prime of his health, unfortunately.
Yeah.
My argument is exactly what you just said. He's not on the court. He's about to miss 2 straight seasons
Yep.
with injuries to the body part, arguably that you need the most to be a
Yeah.
basketball player.
Yep.
Body parts, that is, Achilles and the ACL.
Yep.
His ACL may be perfectly fine, but getting back to playing and stressing your limbs and the parts of your body that you require and you rely on to be successful.
Especially muscle memory sort of
Yeah.
action like shooting.
And just even trusting your body. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to be... Derrick Rose struggled with this.
Yeah.
He's come out and said, like, he didn't trust his legs
Yeah.
to be the same thing after his injury.
Yep.
Who knows how Klay Thompson feels?
Yep.
There can't be a lot of confidence in that necessarily.
Yep.
And then the Achilles blowing up, like, that's just really, really unfortunate.
The only thing I tried to keep separate from all of this is I wanted it to be a team decision from the moment they signed these guys. And I think, Klay Thompson was 100% at the time he signed this extension, 100% worth that money. 100%.
I think so. And that was coming off of an injury,
Yeah.
ACL.
Yeah.
And it's still like, okay, he'll come back from that and probably be okay.
Yep.
And even then, you could potentially question the contract. But now in hindsight, and like 2020, hindsight is 2020, but that contract is not good.
Yeah.
And that's, on top of that, we discussed last week, the Warriors are almost $150 million in luxury tax.
Yeah.
And part of that is Klay Thompson. Again, you can't break up the Splash Brothers, but just from an objective standpoint, to pay somebody $40 million a year when he's not even playing is pretty shocking.
Yep.
At least John Wall's playing.
I'm not mad at it. I'm
Yeah.
not mad at it. I looked at it and I second guessed myself like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
I just thought, the Gary Harris at 10's probably the one that would be interchangeable with that for me. I wouldn't have him at 2. Only because when he is on the court, the amount of production he puts up is far more than anyone else on this list.
He's important,
like far more. I'm not mad at it.
Okay, fair enough. Who is your number 2?
John Wall.
Right.
Yeah, we've been through it.
Yeah.
That's a bad one.
It's not good.
No. John Wall was a star. I wouldn't put him in the superstar category in his prime.
I agree.
He was a very, very good NBA player. But his the primary point of his game was all athleticism. So now to come back into the league, potentially a bit slower, not as athletic. He just hasn't been able to stay on the court for the last 4 years. He's really struggled with his fitness.
Yeah.
And now he's missed 2 straight seasons. He's only played 73 games in the last 4 seasons, the 2 seasons before missing these last 2.
Mm-hmm.
And he's now 30 years old.
Yeah,
so
I know. It's not
it's
good,
a bad
man.
one.
John, see, that's the thing. I look at these contracts, and there's only a handful of players that I would pay over $40 million a year.
Yep.
Just off the top of my head, I would pay Steph Curry, LeBron, Kevin Durant.
Yep.
And I know Chris Paul's making over that. I'd pay Chris Paul that money.
I would too.
Giannis, probably.
Yep.
And that's kind of where I draw the line at that number. It's a bit arbitrary. You might be like, oh, what about 37 million, whatever.
Yeah.
But John Wall at $42 million a season is insane.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
And I agree. He's not a superstar. He's just a star. Not an indictment on John, but that number is pretty incredible.
And it's hard to even be a good NBA player. So, you know, for him to be paid in the top 10, it's bad.
It's pretty bad,
It's bad. All right. Do you want to say number 1 at the same time?
I mean, yeah.
You want to count down?
3, 2, 1.
Tobias Harris. Yeah.
$36 million a year for 4 seasons.
It's bad.
Still 4 years to go,
so
Philly.
Bad.
Hold on, Philly. He's only 28 years old, Philly.
Oh, I don't even know.
I'm not trying to bash Philly because I like it when Philly's like the home crowd there is awesome. One of the best 5 crowds in the league, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But Yeah, that contract is awful, and it's 100% guaranteed as well.
It's
It was
so
signed.
bad.
It was $180 million guaranteed for 5 seasons. This has to be a Elton Brand thing. It
Yeah.
has to be, because look
Yeah.
at what he gave to
Yep.
Al Horford,
Yeah.
and then look at what he gave to Tobias Harris.
Yep.
It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't.
It's like it's almost like he's not going to negotiate, and he's just going to pay the player.
Yeah.
It's like he's not willing to negotiate. He just wants.
He just
to,
can't be bothered.
can't be bothered
He
to
really
negotiate.
just can't be. Well, he's like, what's the most I can give him?
Yeah.
I'll give him that.
Yeah, he deserves it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He's pretty good.
Business? Nah, don't do business.
He is paid in the top 15 of NBA players. Currently, it's like above the 2-time MVP, Giannis
Currently,
Antetokounmpo. And he has now handcuffed the franchise
Mm-hmm.
with an average roster that may be a first round out. Look, Tobias is 28, so, you know, he should be in the prime of his career. But saying that, the prime of his career is as a third or fourth option on an average Philadelphia team.
He should be on Jeremy Grant money. Instead, he's
Man,
on
not even.
Kevin Durant money, or he's on
Yeah.
one of these. He's on Jimmy Butler money,
He's being paid.
which is insane.
He's being paid like a star, and he's not even that.
He's a good player.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
Tobias Harris.
I
Honestly,
like him too.
But
He's a
objectively, that number's
starting
awful.
NBA player, but starting NBA players don't earn $33 million a year. I was gonna mention Gordon Hayward, but again, I think that for the situation in Charlotte and for the team that they have there,
it makes sense.
that is a must-have contract.
I have to admit, I kind of forgot about that one. That would have missed my cut. It wouldn't have
Yeah.
made my top 10.
Yeah.
But still,
Yep. That's the only special mention I had. But yeah, Tobias Harris is the undisputed worst contract in the NBA.
yeah.
And people may disagree only because Tobias Harris is 28. He's able to stay on the court. But I think the important thing to remember here is on his best day, he's not the first option in Philadelphia.
Exactly.
They're still going to Embiid. They're still going to Simmons. It's not Tobias Harris's team, and he's being paid like the number one option.
Yeah. So Tobias Harris is currently this season the 15th highest paid player in the league. The following season, he will actually go down to 16th. But then the following season, he moves up to number 10. And then in year 4, he's paid $41 million a year. Now, other people are going to get signed, but he's the 6th highest paid player in the league. Tobias Harris is.
Rudy Gobert's top 5. That's important to mention as well.
Yes.
In 23-24, so not currently.
Yeah.
There's obviously going to be more extensions by that point. I think we'll see upgraded contracts across the league for a lot of the stars. But yeah, it's just bad.
Again,
It's just
guaranteed
bad.
money. He's the 10th highest paid player for total guaranteed money. 149 if you round up million dollars total.
Yeah, it's awful.
It's pretty bad.
It's awful. Look, Jamal Murray is also, that's another special mention. He's had a couple of really good games.
Yep.
He's been, okay through his NBA career to this point. He's only young. He's got plenty of improvement in his game. But, yeah, that's another big contract that's probably a little bit premature from Denver's point of view. But, yeah, I don't hate it, so I didn't include it in my top 10.
Right.
But that'll do for the top 10 worst contracts in the NBA. Let us know if you disagree with anything we have to say, because we absolutely will change everything for your opinions.
Yeah. That's how it works.
Yeah, exactly.
Tobias Harris, I mean, if anyone's arguing Tobias Harris is not the worst contract in the league,
Yeah.
we may not respond. Klay Thompson is probably going to get some hits.
Yeah.
And Chris Middleton.
Yep.
But that's
you're
not...
going to upset a lot of people with Chris Middleton.
I think I'm going to upset people with Klay Thompson.
Yeah, you probably will. Yeah.
But I do feel strongly he's the second worst
I
contract.
don't
in the
hate
league.
it. I don't hate it. I wouldn't have put him in there only because when he's on the court, he's the best out of that whole lot. So
He is important.